of the London is Blue podcast, hopefully your favorite Chelsea podcast out there, and a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. Dan, one of your hosts here, alongside Sam, CFC Central, and we are going to be getting into the Sunderland match preview. That's right, taking a look at Chelsea's upcoming weekend fixture, an opportunity for the Blues to continue their winning ways after a wonderful performance in the midweek against Ajax. And Sam, I mean, more predictions coming correct from the preview podcast. I think we're starting to dial it in finally. I think we're trying, and we've done it. We're putting together a resume of predictions that people are going to have to take seriously now.
It is, and I think more encouragingly, people just saying, "Hey, you got it right on the board." I've been listening to it, and you haven't been, Nostradamus, high on something and just, waffling about on a mic. You generally did your research, so that feels good. That I'm not just sitting there with a spreadsheet junkie and just speaking my mind out there. But I'm super happy with that. Both of us have worked really hard in terms of analyzing the games and giving our lovely viewers something to boast about in the pub, or just say that hey, this might happen. So I think it's just props to both of us, and it feels nice to blow your trumpet from time to time, doesn't it, Dan?
It does indeed. And hopefully we'll come up with a couple more predictions in this episode in our On the Ledge section at the very end of it. But before we do that, we're going to take a look at just how things have been going for this Sunderland side, one that is not hanging out at the bottom of this table in the relegation zone. No, they are punching above their weight a little bit, or maybe not. We'll get into our assessment on what their season has looked like so far. We'll talk a little bit about their strengths as well as their weaknesses. We'll flip the script. Sam will ask me a couple of questions, and I'll try to figure out what Enzo Maresca is going to do with things like the lineup, like the setup heading into this game. And then again, our predictions at the end of it. But just a very, very quick reminder at the top. We are going back to London. We are doing that at the end of December into the new year. If you are interested, please reach out or check the links in the description, or hit us up at contact@londonisbluepodcast.com. We'd love to get you some information about it. Double-digit signups at the moment, and we are very, very excited to be going back to London to see some of our friends, to see a couple Chelsea games, and hopefully watch us accumulate maximum points at the bridge, and then also in our trip up to Manchester City as well. But look, jumping into it, Sam, we have a Sunderland side that I think you are going to say that they've maybe overachieved. They're finding their luck. They're taking their opportunities. 7th in the table, equal on points to Chelsea right now at 14. They just have a +3 goal differential to our +7. So they are sitting a few places back ahead of the Crystal Palace team that has, put people in a position to take a look and say, oh, yeah, they're kind of doing good. Ahead of a Manchester United team that also is finding a way and making a way at times, and not hanging out with the Nottingham Forest, West Ham, Wolves teams in the relegation zone. I guess top level, just quick hit. Are they a good side that's performing as they should be? Are they a side that is a little bit of smoke and mirrors in terms of maybe just doing enough to work out a couple of these results here? Or are they absolutely a facts, are they a fake side in every which way, shape, and form, and extremely lucky with all their results?
Yeah, I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. I think it's just dichotomy, the duality of man. And I would say that, just to counter your point, well, they've not really faced anybody of note as of yet. The fixture list has been very, very kind. And we were talking about this before we started recording, saying, fate has been kind. And you said, well, sometimes that's exactly what you need. And I think Sunderland wouldn't have dreamt of like a better start in terms of getting the right amount of fixtures, maybe a little bit of, bump here and there to get used to the intensity of the Premier League. But largely it's been good. They've yet to face anybody in the top 7, the current top 7 in the Premier League, and they faced only 2 in the top 10 so far. So the rest have been just the bottom of the table, struggling sides, still trying to figure out their own issues. So for Sunderland to be able to walk in there, it's been quite a polite welcome, let's just say that. But I will go on and say that in terms of what they did in the Championship and how difficult it is now for promoted sides to come in and make a dent, they've taken a big risk and it's paid off. Not many promoted sides come in and make 14 new transfers, 15 if you count Marquis in there, and 15 new transfers, and expect them to quickly gel together and put together a unit that could basically ensure survival, and that's what they've done. And the money wasn't just scrimping around for cents and nickels. It's just trying to smartly get some quality or some experience. That's where the money has gone in. They went for Granit Xhaka, for example, from Leverkusen. Obviously, lots of experience in the Premier League with Arsenal, proven leader. So he's come in and been absolutely sensational in the middle of the park. It's a great, great capture for them. Habib Diarra, for example, one of Strasbourg's really good players. They've got him in for 30 million, unfortunately injured as of now. But when he came in, the impact was quite sizable and significant in midfield. And they've just been very smart pickups here and there. And Zulefay came in last season in the championship, to my surprise, and not absolutely not surprised that he's playing in the Premier League. So just in terms of personnel, in terms of how they've gone on to do things, I think it's been really, really picture perfect for them. You look at the numbers and they can be a bit deceptive that they're currently the joint second best defense in the Premier League, with just, I think, 6 goals. Arsenal are on 3, which is a fantastic number considering the number of games played. But again, look at the sides they've faced and the ones they're about to face in Manchester City and Arsenal over the next few weeks, and we'll get to know where exactly they stand. But overall, Dan, I think the squad, the side, the manager dialed in to ensure survival, which is a good thing.
Well, when you're looking to just stay up in the Premier League for the season and then build from there, you want to do anything you can to make that happen. And just to kind of go back through a couple of the results, their last fixture, they beat Wolves 2-0. They lost to United 2-0 before that. They beat the Ange Postecoglou Nottingham Forest, very, very short era, 1-0. They had the 1-1 draw against Aston Villa. They had the 0-0 draw against Crystal Palace. They had the 2-1 win over Brentford. They ended up losing on penalties in the League Cup to Huddersfield. They lost to Burnley 2-0. And then their first match of the season was the 3-0 win over West Ham to get them started. So, again, I think to your point, Sam, not a bunch of teams there that you're looking at as having had any type of great start to the season. I mean, we're thinking about a Manchester United team that's 9th, a Villa team that's 11th, a Brentford that's 13th, a Burnley that's 17th, a Forest that's 18th, and a West Ham and Wolves that are 19th and 20th. I mean, to your point, they haven't really played anyone of note or anyone ahead of them in the table currently. So it is putting us, I think, in a situation to just evaluate the quality of wins that they have. And we know that at the end of the day, 3 points is 3 points, and where you're on the table is where you're on the table. But this does feel like it is going to be potentially the first real test for this Sunderland side. I want to start talking about some of the players that may or may not be available for them, but I want to do that, just get a real quick ad break out of the way so we can get into all the details. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. And Sam, I know you wanted to follow up a little bit more. What were you thinking? Just maybe, again, quality of wins, the opposition they face. Did you have some additional thoughts there?
Yeah, just when you were talking about that entire aspect of, are they good enough? I mean, to me, it's like, neighborhood bully, strong and nice, in the classroom, but what does he do when the grown-ups turn up? And I think that's going to be the big question when they face us. And obviously, it's going to be at home, they've been very good. So I think it's going to be quite an interesting context from just trying to figure out whether they're up for it in this particular game. So that's something that I would probably just keep a close eye on. I think we're very well suited to turn up at Stamford Bridge and really amp it up after the last couple of performances. Just the magnitude of the wins, Dan. Going to Ajax and basically getting, not going to Ajax, but going against Ajax and getting 5 goals there, and then obviously getting a really, really good win against the champions. Just the momentum is with us. So I think the best time as ever to face a promoted side like Sunderland. So yeah, I think in terms of quality, in terms of injuries, there's just one name that I'm looking at here. Technically two. There's something friend of the pod Ollie told me that Alderete, who's their Paraguayan centre back, was one of La Liga's best defenders last season, and he's apparently out due to a concussion protocol. So that's a huge, huge miss for Sunderland, because along with Dan Ballard, who's an authority figure in their center of defense, he was huge. Not only is he defensively very, very resolute, but also very good at set pieces. So if he's missing, then Sunderland have a huge headache because suddenly the defense looks a lot less intimidating with him in it. And I would say the other, we've talked about Habib Diarra. I really loved watching him at Strasbourg when I was watching Andre Santos. So he's going to be a big miss. Very powerful ball carrier, somebody who's extremely athletic, intelligent in terms of the way that he runs. That's been a little bit missing in midfield. They've had to even, I would say, tweak their formation a little bit, go more regularly to a 4-2-3-1. They were using a 4-3-3 with three midfielders and getting, box to box midfielder like Diarra, but now it's just Xhaka and Sadiki who are now trying to play a two-man pivot and then getting some help from the number 10. So I think those injuries have also affected the way Sunderland like to play.
And maybe then just looking at the totality of this Sunderland side, I mean, again, it has been a situation. I mean, obviously we've had the Guiu gone and then Guiu back situation as well. But can you walk me through a little bit more about just what are some of the things that they've kind of been getting into here, the formation type, how they're playing either with the ball or without the ball, and then we can start to look at just the totality of the positions on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were to just look at systems or formations, it's just been 4-2-3-1 that he used in the championship last season. And the 4-3-3 was more to lend some balance, add a little bit of strength to midfield, ensure that you had, a lot of teams come up with three midfielders and you've got to at least be able to compete in terms of numbers and not put that level of pressure on your centre backs to jump out. So the 4-3-3 was where I think the transition was made. But overall, Dan, in terms of their buys, in terms of what they've tried to create, it's a squad that is built to maximize physicality, built to maximize and optimize dueling and recoveries for first and second balls. They're just designed to play without the ball. Even in the championship, their overall possession, their average possession was under 50%. And I think it's fallen to around 43, which keeps them somewhere 16th in the Premier League this season for average possession. So it's a side that loves to play without the ball, quite happy to relinquish it and give you the initiative. And without the ball, you see them often take a 4-4-2. So Isidore, who's the centre forward, will be joined by either number 10, whoever it is. If it's Lefebvre, sometimes he joins in. A couple of other players have also joined in to make it a 4-4-2. So quite a resolute block that is narrow, tries to play in a mid block, sometimes likes to press depending on the game state, but they will be quite compact, just trying not to give you those central spaces. And they prefer the side goes wide because when they cross into the box, they've got some very good box defenders there. So don't really mind any kind of aerial bombardment. And I don't think we've had that kind of threat either right now in the box to create anything from those wide crosses. So I think that's going to be quite an interesting challenge in terms of how well can we play through the center. So they are going to be, in terms of just trying to breach the box, quite challenging from an aerial perspective. In possession, Sunderland waste very little time turning the ball from, just going to ball wins with a very ball winning heavy pivot in Shaka and Siddiqui to going wide. And they obviously just prefer the flanks because that's where they want their attackers to be and get those 1v1 isolations. So usually when they're trying to build, will build through the left hand side, and if they want to go direct, they usually target the right hand side, but they've got a lot more flair, a lot more 1v1 threat in Bertrand Traore, who is obviously ex Chelsea. And you've got Chalby also, who's come in and can offer a little bit of, nice fleet footedness on the right side. But just to give you the metrics, Dan, they're bottom of the Premier League for sides that have tried to attack through the center, with just 21% of their attacks coming through the middle. And we're somewhere along the top, close to 38 or 40%, if I remember correctly. So, whenever Sunderland win the ball, look for those switches. Granit Xhaka, for example, will just try to hit those switches out wide and see how well they can harass you in those wide positions. And one more interesting thing to note is they have some very, very good long throw-ins. A lot of Premier League sides are now trying to create that into a potent weapon, but they've created 6 chances from long throw-ins and only Brentford have managed more. So that's also one to watch from a side that likes being physical and likes to take those crappy opportunities and make you pay for it.
And then kind of starting to then take a look, just in terms of, the way that they attack, what should we expect from, again, a side that, has not been the most prolific in terms of scoring goals. Again, 9 goals across the 8 games. So, and a couple of those have come, clustered in, 3 of them came from one game against West Ham. So just kind of, can you frame for me how their attack has been working?
Yeah, I think Isidore is obviously their main threat, and the centre forwards got one third of their goals this season. So he's somebody who's, I think, quite impressive. I was very, very impressed when I've seen him play. Not just somebody who's an old school nine that he can knock down balls for people and he'll make those little link up play stick when he's trying to drop and hold somebody back, but he's also quite aggressive in terms of running in behind, likes to create those avenues for long balls in behind as well. So he's a two-way threat in terms of a centre forward position. You mentioned that particular game against Brentford popped up with a 96th minute header in that game. So very good from set pieces, very good header on him, quite tall, very physical. So your centre backs have to be up to it, trying to keep him quiet, trying to be first to long balls. It's kind of trying to go up with Chris Wood, I would say, where it's just trying to keep him away from the box as much as possible, but he is slightly quicker. I would say quite much quicker than Chris Wood is at this point in his career. So that's definitely one to watch. He will try to get those little long balls in down. The goalkeeper Robin Drifts goes long very often. Not really interested in building out too much. So he will get those opportunities to go up against the centre backs, back into them, and create those avenues. The full backs are quite interesting to me, Dan, because in attack they like to push up and they will provide those avenues for the switches, not really the wingers. So the left hand side is quite intriguing to me because Enzo Lefe, who's somebody I would say made his reputation as a central player, very inventive, got some nice twinkle toes and really nice vision for a pass and through balls. So when you've got somebody like him, in that number 10 position and you try to play a 4-3-3, then you have to fit him somehow. And Libre's tried to switch him on the left hand side as a left winger, and pushing that left fullback up then brings Enzo Lefe into those half spaces or central positions where he really likes being inventive and tries to create some kind of issues. So I would say that's where the attack is, strong mobile target man, creating just that reference point for a long ball out, which Sunderland often use. And then you've got a creative player like Lefay, able to perceive in pockets and create something. And on the right hand side, you've got 1v1 threats that will try to take on Kukureya, or hopefully in their eyes will try to get 1v1 with the centre back so they can attack the box.
And then, just kind of thinking a little bit about, the rest of how they operate, kind of some of the, midfield combinations, and then also just, in terms of how they play in defense. Can you walk us through the remainder of just what you would consider at least their style of play? I don't know if you're necessarily considering them strengths, but just how they're operating so that we get the full picture of what it's going to look like in action this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've touched upon attack, but let's go to like midfield and defense and color in the picture and offer you a better picture. So, Granit Xhaka, we've talked about top assist provider there with three, and nobody else has had more than one, I think. And we all know about him. He's this midfield general, expansive passing range, allows him to pick these lovely long balls, likes to play those high value passes into either between lines or behind lines, but he's also got a wand of a left foot. So if you do give him a chance from 30-35 yards, he will hit them, and he will hit them really, really hard, and probably catch Robert Sanchez a couple of times in positions where he's not expecting it. So long shots from Xhaka, 100% a big, big threat, something that has to be catered to. But him in general, trying to shut down that engine room, trying to shut down the passing pipeline, I think he's the one that you have to pressure. He's the one that you have to get close to. In terms of just the profile, he is a workhorse even at 32, almost 33 years old. A lot of ball winning capabilities, even as a number six. So he's definitely one to watch. Sadiki is similar, very dual heavy, can run around, can give you a lot of industry in midfield. So it's a very strong pivot from an athletic perspective. But he's somebody who's given the license to help Sunderland create something out wide. So you'll often see him create these fluid rotations with the winger, with the fullback who's also given license to bomb forward. So sometimes, for example, the fullback will come inside, like Hume will come into midfield and invert, and Siddiqui will go out into the fullback's position, and those rotations happen quite a lot. Siddiqui also sometimes just switches from the right side to the left side and creates some marking issues. So he's somebody who will be a little more adventurous in that pivot. If it's a two pivot or if it's a three-man midfield, then usually sticks to one side and it's a conventional 4-3-3. But he's given that license to bomb forward with underlap, will go outside, will overlap. So lots of support providing from midfield. In defense, the fullbacks we've mentioned will be key to how they function. In attack, will push up high, will be the outlets for the switches that come from the goalkeeper, that come from Granit Xhaka. So they will try to push up into advanced positions. Just to give you an example, Dan, against Wolves, which was the last game, two of the highest XG value shots, the most valuable chances that came to them, uh, came to both their fullbacks. Mukiele got one. The most important one, I think, was something above 0.25, and he scored that one. And the second one came to the other fullback in Hume, and he hit the post with the other. So the fullbacks are going to create opportunities, going to get in those zones where they can create long balls. Wide crosses are a big part of how they play because they've got a really good front man who's aerially very good. So if they get into the attacking third, maybe against us, I expect them to try and cross rather than try to hit the byline, because it's hard for me to predict, Dan, because we haven't really seen them against like a top side where maybe attacking opportunities will be transitions and very limited spells of possession. But I expect them to get into the attacking third and go early for a cross to Istor to try and create some issues against the centre back. So the fullbacks are going to be ones to watch. And in the middle, you've got Ballard and Alderete, very strong box defenders, very good at defending and defensive and offensive set pieces. We talked about Alderete maybe not being available in this one. So we'll see how the balance and how the defensive strength as a unit shifts. But Robin Rives, who was brought in as the new number one, has been one of the league's top shot stoppers. And he's prevented a league high of 2.6 goals, which is joint first in the Premier League. So, um, definitely a goalkeeper that'll be looking to spoil the party. So, defensively, Dan, is I think where the strengths are. It's just a side that wants to frustrate you, wants to take you to the deep end, and hope that you stop thrashing before they try to drown you.
And then as we kind of take a look at, again, we've now looked at all of the different components and players on the pitch, going specifically to weaknesses as well. I do feel as if, I mean, is it a little copy and paste, similar to the Ajax side we just faced, where it feels as if it's a midfield we can get after, and it's fullbacks that we absolutely can, put into nightmare mode with the way that our wingers, our attackers are going to go after them. It does feel as if there's maybe not a full 1-to-1, but some level of overlap from what we saw this midweek to how we potentially can get at the Sunderland side.
Yeah, great catch, to be honest. And both sides have, gone for the 4-3-3, and it's been trying to create a lot more. I would say Ajax are a lot more front foot when they shouldn't be, and Sunderland are more conservative in terms of we don't really want the ball. We're comfortable without it. So I think the ideologies and the philosophy in terms of how they want to play are quite different. But yes, the weaknesses do overlap quite a bit. I think the first one we would like to talk about is the midfield pivot, which is sometimes skewed because Siddiqui is pushing into adventurous positions, and that leaves Granit Xhaka to cope with transitions. And at almost 33 years of age, he's not really as explosive as he used to be. And even when the makeshift solution happens, which is the other midfielder, usually Lefebvre, who drops to provide some kind of support, Lefebvre and Xhaka are not really athletic guys in the sense they will not be able to cover long distances while sprinting. Lefebvre is quite, I would say, gritty. He will clip your heels and he will try to pull your shirt and stuff, but quite fast, but not that strong in my opinion. And Shaka, I think, lacks explosiveness, but he is very, very industrious. So there can be something that in transitions, especially if you go through the center, you might get at them. So that's one thing that I'd like to mention. On the midfield, there's something else that just lends to the way that they want to defensively set up, and this is something that I noticed against United. And obviously the system is different, it's a back three, and I get that, but Sadiki was asked to do a double duty, what we call like two roles. So you usually are supposed to press one person, and you're supposed to cover another person. So if the front line, for example, goes from pressing or shadowing a double pivot to pressing the goalkeeper, then that man becomes free. So it's your opportunity to go ahead and also make sure that that midfielder, that opposition pivot, isn't free. And Sadiki was asked to do this on Casemiro, for example, to make sure that if the front Isidore wasn't on Casemiro and pushed on the goalkeeper, then he would have to go after Casemiro, but also make sure Bruno Fernandes wouldn't get the ball. And when you're giving a player two duties to do, it usually leads to a lot of mistakes. Usually after a certain point in the game, it leads to positional errors, lack of concentration, and that's what happened with Bruno, where he tried to push on Casemiro and Bruno got free. Nobody picked Bruno up because their defensive line doesn't want to step out too high. They want to stay back. So Bruno was able to get the ball, and there was at least like a second and a half for him at the edge of the box to set up, take a second chance, and take second touch and just shoot on goal, which produced a pretty good save. So I would say if your number 10 has the opportunity to get away from Siddiqui in particular, who's going to press and do all the running, then the right sided half space. So if Enzo Fernandez is the one playing on the right hand side and gets to push up, then I would predict that there's a good opportunity for him to either pick out a really good pass or shoot from the space between Sunderland's defensive line and between Sadiki. So the right-sided half space is something that I'm paying a lot of attention to. The fullbacks, like you mentioned, can be caught out when pushing up. And again, on the left-hand side, if it's a 4-3-3, Lefebvre plays left wing, then there is definitely something that you can get at. There's a tendency from Lefebvre to move centrally. He gets into those central positions, and then the left back has to compensate. They have to push up and make sure that the line is good enough to counter press and squeeze the pressure, and that leaves a lot of space for you to switch and get 1v1 with Sunderland's left centre back. And I think that's something that you can exploit. If Lefebvre is pushing up, and if it's a 4-3-3 as a left winger, go very quickly wide to the right wing, to somebody like an Estevao or a Pedro Neto against their left centre back, and you'll get a lot of joy.
It does feel as if, depending upon who we play in the 10, there are also challenges for how they might drop a little bit deeper, and if it kind of exposes their defense as well. I think in relation to other challenges they have just from a defensive standpoint too.
Yeah, I think the back four has, like I mentioned, I think just connected to the last point. I think they've shown a little bit of reluctance to step out to come out on the number 10s. And this, again, the United game is a reference for me because there were two of them in Mount and Mbeumo. And if you didn't have one of your midfield pivots covering them, then Sunderland had to essentially get one of their centre backs to jump out and completely smother that threat as quickly as possible. And they failed to do that. And the first one that happened was Mount. I mean, we all know he's a very intelligent player. And Benjamin Sheshko was spinning both centre backs. And what Mount did was just he peeled off Sadiki, got to the edge of the box, right in like Sheshko's shadow. So in that little space where nobody knew who to pick up. Was it the centre back? Was it the midfield pivot? And the ball came to him from out wide. He takes a touch and finishes it off beautifully. And the second one was when Mbeumo dropped really deep in midfield, and Alderete was like, who's picking him? And the centre back had to jump out of a line and get close to him, and Mbeumo spun him, and Alderete got a yellow card. So that basically kept him on his toes. So I think forcing the centre backs to jump, Ballard isn't going to do that. He's more of a very stopper kind of CB, very good in the air, just trying to box defend, not trying to be more mobile. So if you can get the second centre back to jump out and make mistakes, I think that's where you can break Sunderland a little bit. And that's where I think Mark Guiu and Joao Pedro could be quite devastating. If you get Guiu to pin both those centre backs, then I think this is the game where Joao Pedro really roars back into form. So I'm dropping that snippet so you can maybe start to formulate your own the ledge prediction done. But that's definitely something that I'd mark out as a remontada game for Joao Pedro. So that's one. And the last one I'd probably say they are very good at long throws, but I've seen them struggle with them too. And
Mhm.
especially if their second centre back in Alderete is not available, then you can create some issues with aerial deliveries. And the second goal for United came from a long throw from Diego Dallo on the right hand side. Um, it was actually, I think, a Sunderland player who flicks it on to Sheshko, who just taps it in from 3 yards. So aerial deliveries, I would normally say if it was Alderete and Ballard in there, like I would say, don't cross. But I think there are ample opportunities here for your center forward to pin those two center backs and maybe go out wide. So you can either target, say, Kukureya coming in on the far post against whoever it is on that flank, say it's Mukiele, or you can try to just, get Makiu on the score sheet the way that you did there. Just try and cross into interesting positions and see what yields.
Well, let's take our last ad break. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit about some of those questions that Enzo Maresca is having to or going to have to think about answering. Again, doing this before the pre-match press conference, so operating a little bit in the dark as relates to some of the player availability, but we'll get that done. And then our predictions for this match, including our on the ledge ones. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. All right, Sam, what do you got in terms of questions, things that maybe Maresca or will try to help him figure out as it heads into, one day before a match as this episode drops?
Yeah, the first one is quite, I would say, a philosophical question rather than anything else. So now you've got what, four options, five options for three slots in behind the center forward. And let's say Mark Guiu is going to be playing there because he was taken off quite candidly by Enzo Maresca, maybe suggesting he gets a start. So you've got Neto, you've got Estevao, you've got Gittins, you've got Garnacho, you've got Joao Pedro. Now, Neto, Estevao, Gittins, all three of them have put in some really good performances. Gittins having the Ajax game, MOTM, Estevao doing really well against Liverpool, coming in and getting an assist against Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Neto obviously doing a really good game there. What do you do with Joao Pedro? Now the centre forward position is gone. You've got Estevao now sort of pushing into that number 10 slot because Neto might start. He was rested. What are you doing with Joao Pedro? Is it starting him at number 10 because he's your only hope at centre forward? Or are you actually resting him out of meritocracy and saying, I'll give you a sub appearance and show me what you've got?
I don't think I mean, I think he's going to start. I just don't. I'm trying to just envision what Maresca does or how he thinks about setting up for these games. I don't think he's going to do anything other than start Joao Pedro in this game, unless for some belief or reason he feels like he needs even more time off or needs to be involved in the League Cup game or needs to be kind of ready for the match against Tottenham the following weekend. I mean, to me, in my mind, I think he's going to get the start of the opportunity here, and maybe the situation is that someone like Mark Guiu ends up as the kind of starting striker in that match against Wolves, so that Joao Pedro and is fresh and ready for the match against Tottenham the following weekend. Like I generally think that he likes to go with the more experienced individual, and I know that we were like talking about the Forest game. I mean, Joao Pedro started in that one. Obviously there have been several matches this season where, outside of like not being available due to a red card suspension in this last match against Ajax, like, I mean, he also was the starting striker in the Liverpool game. And, obviously he got, subbed off there, but like, I don't know. Like it doesn't feel like he's gonna, necessarily be one to miss out on minutes. I think to your point though, it is a conversation around like where he ends up in that infrastructure. I feel like it's going to be at the number 9 personally, but you could tell me I'm wrong and I would not be hurt. I would not hurt my feelings. I feel like we started to see a little bit more of Romeo Lavia. We've started to see, Enzo push a little further forward. Like I do think there are things that he's thinking about in terms of Maresca, in terms of how he's constructing the midfield, which maybe puts Enzo Fernandez into a little bit more of that like 8 to 10 situation, pushing further forward and then having like Elavia and Caicedo as your kind of other two midfielders, which reduces out like one of those attacking options.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for me. I think the most obvious answer here is you play Marquis and Joao Pedro together, and this seems like the perfect game to do so because you've got like what I'm assuming is a back four. I can't be certain because we haven't seen the kind of opposition that Libri literally says, okay, I need to abandon what I've been doing and try to formulate a strategy. But I will point this out. He's made certain tweaks in between games where he's taken off certain players, one because of a red card, but the other one was a conscious change, I think, after United, where they were 2-0 down, and he made a change to take off, midfielder for a centre back to go back three. So there is every chance you end up with a back five to face against. And then again, I would like to see if Maresca is figuring out whether he's got something right or wrong, whether he's preparing for a back three or he's preparing for a back four. If he's preparing for a back three, Joao Pedro does not start at nine for me. He does not. I think that's simple enough. But if it's a back four, I would still consider it. But I would still say the easiest option is to play Marquis, play Joao Pedro behind him. And then you've got a decision to make between who you want to play between Estevao and Neto on the right hand side. So, which this is a nice segue for me to go into the next question, which is the left wing. Garnacho obviously not really there at full fitness. Gittins offering a really, really good display against Ajax, getting the man of the match performance there. So, who are you starting on the left wing? Are you keeping faith, or are you saying Garnacho is my number one and needs to get fit? Obviously, wasn't used at that game. So, which one are you picking?
Oh man, I think this is probably the most challenging of the what is going to end up happening. This one, I think, with the Sevao getting maximum minutes in the match midweek, I don't think he ends up starting in this game. I think he comes in off the bench. I think Neto ends up on the right hand side, and I think also with Gittins getting the minutes he did in this match, I don't think Gittins starts. I think it would be Garnacho just from a rotational standpoint. Not to say whether or not one has or has not earned it. I'm just thinking more about how Maresca is seemingly trying to manage the acclimatization for someone like Gittins. I mean, again, like he has, a very, very small number of Premier League minutes. I mean, he's only the maximum number he has in a single match so far, like the last five, is 55 minutes in the draw against Brentford where he started. I mean, everything else has been kind of featured. I mean, he's only had two Premier League starts out of the 6 games he's featured in. So to me, that reads that he would probably be a sub rather than a starter. So I'm guessing that I'm of the mind that Guiu probably doesn't start. That's just my view. I think it ends up being Joao Pedro 9. I think you have Neto and I think you have Garnacho, and I think Enzo just gets pushed a little further forward with Lavia and Caicedo as your combination of midfields, and I think that's what he's going to roll out with.
That's very intriguing to me because Jess mentioned this. I mean, post match after Ajax, Maresca's comments suggested that he moved Estevao into a central position so that he doesn't expend some energy because he has more important games to come. Which I don't know if he was throwing, a red herring at Libri saying, I'm going to start Estevao, or was it just, an honest confession that the form is just too hard to ignore at this point in time? But I think that's a really good discourse in terms of the options available to Maresca, which is saying something considering how many injuries he's had. So I would say against this opposition, you would probably benefit one way or another from whatever permutation or combination. But I'm fairly in the same boat as saying get Mark Yu at number 9, at least until Delap is fit. You have to build him up, get
Mhm.
Joao Pedro in the position where he's really, really good. And especially here where the weaknesses aligned really well for you and that the centre backs have trouble picking you up, I think Joao Pedro could do a really, really good job. And obviously, if you throw Estevao as a substitute, then it just makes matters infinitely worse. So that would be my strategy there. But let's just move on to the best part of the podcast for me. Dan, don't know if it's the same for you, but
Oh, it is.
let it rip with your on the ledge predictions and your scoreline.
Oh, I am going to go with a Chelsea. I want to go big. I really do. I think it's going to be a Chelsea 4-1 win on the day. I think we will find a lot of fun against our friends in Sunderland or against Sunderland. And if I'm going on the ledge with a prediction here, oof. I mean, there have been some good ones this season that we've tried that have not panned out necessarily. I think Pedro Neto ends up with contributions in 3 of our goals, whether he scores them or he assists them. I think it might be his one of his best returning attacks in a single game for Chelsea.
You say 3 in one game.
Yeah, so it could be 2 assists and a goal. It could
Wow.
be. I think it's going to be a pretty big day for Pedro Neto.
Hmm. And we've just moved from on the ledge to like genuinely Geronimo, haven't we?
Look, I mean, that would double his total for the season in the league so far because he's on 3 across 8 games. So I'm just thinking he saw something. He saw the Estevao show, and he's motivated to come out and do something magical. Look, I'll take 2, but if it goes above 3, I would be really. I would if it's 3 or more, I'd be extremely happy.
Nice. That's a proper on the ledge. For mine was quite safe. I would say like I was going for a job at like a brace, or I mean, I don't want to go for a hat trick, but I'd say a brace. After all the scoring drought that he's at, I would say 2 goals in one game is definitely throwing myself on the ledge. But if you had to get another one, I'd probably say like a Kukuraya header. I'm going to steal your last week's prediction,
Oh,
and
excellent!
I
Yeah.
think here, yeah, I think there is definitely a chance here that you steal something at the far post, and Cuckoo more than anybody is probably well primed to be that guy. So I think one of those two definitely comes true. In terms of scoreline, I think Sunderland have been very good defensively, but against sides that haven't really given them the kind of trouble I expect them to. So I wouldn't go big, but I'll go a modest 3-1.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you take a look at the fact that, I mean, João Pedro last season for Brighton, I think as we all know, I mean, he was on penalties, so he ended up with a little bit of a higher kind of overall return over these last couple of seasons. He ended up with 11 goals and assists when you take out the penalties. He was 5 for 5 last season. So at 5 total goal contributions across our 8 games, I mean, that's effectively 45% of his total non-penalty volume from last season. So while he has been in a drought currently, I mean, there is still a player there who can put something together. And I think to your point, it would be great to see him grab 2 more. I mean, that would bring him up to 7 overall, and then, he would be kind of effectively, close to 64% of his total non-penalty involvement across 9 Premier League games this season, which would put him on pace for his best return in a Premier League season ever at, the young age of 23. So hopefully it comes true for you. Hopefully some of it comes true for me. Like, a Joao Pedro brace with Pedro Neto also assisting. I think ours, they don't always go together. They're not always, jigsaw pieces that fit together, but our on the ledge predictions today definitely complement each other, and hopefully they come true.
I'm with you on that. And hey, we've been on a hot streak. You never quit when you're ahead, or is that the
That is
opposite? I don't
true.
know. But I'm not a betting I'm not a betting man, but I will say that we are putting our necks on the line, and we're having fun while doing it. So I'll give you props for that, and I really really hope that's the case, because both players can absolutely use those outputs there. So you know I'm looking forward to it, and good stuff on me. Like, I don't know, beers on me if you get yours right.
Well, we hope that we got some rights that we can get each other a couple of drinks next time we see one another in person. But look, that's going to do it for this one. So again, if you'd like to support the podcast, leave 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's always appreciated. If you go on YouTube and can subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notified. Like and comment on the video. Say nice things to Sam. Obviously, you've been sending him tons of wonderful wishes about his recent nuptials and weddings. So he's enjoyed that. We'd love also for you to sign up for our free weekly newsletter, the London's Blue Dispatch, and get that in your inbox every single week. And it is wonderfully written by Sam as well. And then don't forget, we've got a free or paid version of our Discord community that you can use to either just have some chats with people listening to the podcast or support the podcast as well. But that's going to do it for this episode. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.